Hello everyone. So the Keezer behind me has been serving me pretty well for the last few years, but it is overdue a little bit of an upgrade on the tap front. So I have got myself some shiny new Nukataps stainless steel forward sealing taps to replace the slightly older, cheaper ones that I've got on there currently. So I thought I'd use this video just to talk about the differences between the kind of more premium stainless steel forward sealing taps versus the kind of cheaper chrome plated types that I've got on there at the moment, and have a look at what the sort of differences are and how they operate and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into it and find out what the differences are. Okay, so just before we get into breaking the taps down, I want to talk a little bit about my reasons for wanting to upgrade. I did pay full price for these products, by the way, so this is not a sponsored video in any form, but the prices that I'm talking about are from Brew Tap, who I can recommend as a really good supplier for this sort of equipment, if you're looking for, taps or kegging equipment generally. So the taps that I got originally were from eBay, and I think they were via a Chinese supplier, and they only cost me just over £20 for the full tap, including the shank and all the fittings and everything else. And to be honest, at that price, for the amount that they have lasted me up to this point, I can't really knock them. The Nukataps that I've bought as a full set come to about £40, or yeah, just under £40 for the tap and all the fittings with the shank and all the rest of it. So you'd need to get line and stuff like that and disconnects and so on if you are building everything else from scratch. But in this case, where I'm just changing out the taps, I need the shank and stuff because the fittings are not the same, or the threads are not the same as the taps that I've got back here, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to upgrade, because the Nukataps have kind of standard fittings which can be swapped between Nukataps, Intertaps and so on, and the availability of spares and that kind of stuff is a lot easier basically. So these ones, kind of once they start breaking down, it's a bit harder to kind of service them and get spare parts. And that is something that started happening with those taps. So some of them, the seals are starting to go a little bit. They're getting quite leaky. They generally get quite sticky as well. And that's something that we'll talk about more when we go into the difference between forward sealing and non-forward sealing taps. So they do get gummed up quite a bit. But like I said, they've been good. And we are talking about a price difference at the time when I bought them, which admittedly was quite a long time ago now, of about twice as much for the Nukataps. So admittedly, it's not a complete like-for-like change because the Nukataps that I've got do not have flow control. Obviously, that's something to bear in mind. But as far as the rest of the tap mechanicals and how it works, it's worth looking at it to see what's different about them. So yeah, let's get into that now and start breaking the taps down. Okay, so here we have the two taps. On the left, we've got the old chrome plated brass tap with the flow control, and there we've got the new stainless steel Nukataps, which are forward sealing. So this one does have some elements which are stainless. I think the spout on here is actually stainless steel, but the rest of it is all chrome plated brass. This tap, the entirety of it is stainless steel all the way through. So the reason that's relevant and makes a difference with the cheaper versus the more expensive taps is that stainless steel, generally speaking, is a bit easier to clean. It's a little bit more hygienic because of that. It's less likely to, encourage the growth of sort of bacteria and mold and all the rest of it inside it. And yeah, just generally easier to maintain than the brass stuff. So that's one reason why this is kind of like the premium version. This is the cheaper version. The chrome finish can start to wear away on these as well, so it will start to sort of chip or flake off eventually, or corrode as well, whereas the stainless should pretty much just keep going as long as you clean it well and look after it. So yeah, let's break these down now. So okay, so now we've got them broken down, let's talk about the difference between the forward sealing and the non-forward sealing taps. So that sort of handle operation works on essentially the same principle for both of them, with a little lever that fits into a kind of piston type device which opens and closes the tap. Now, the important thing here is that the seal for this one, which is not forward sealing, is behind the actual mechanism for that. So essentially the spout, the sprung forward part, the piston itself, this bit of the handle that's kind of involved in there, and everything essentially in front of this point, and the flow control stuff is in front of the seal. So when you pour beer through the faucet, anything that's left in there can remain in contact or sort of open to the air through that front portion of the tap. Whereas on the Nukatap, so it's called a Nukatap, by the way, because of the kind of bomb shape of the little piston bit that seals the tap. So that is all a kind of rubbery, plasticky type material as well. And apparently the shape of that is supposed to help with the smooth flow of beer through it and reduce disruption and therefore fobbing, which again, with the amount of kind of bits and pieces going on this one, can potentially be more of an issue. So in this version, you've got the seal is actually the front of the little nuke, and that is sealing into essentially the front of the tap just behind the spout here. So when this moves backwards and forwards, it's sealing to this portion of the tap. So the only part which is kind of open and has beer residue in it is the spout and just that small section at the front of the tap. So all of the mechanism is behind the seal and should remain essentially, sanitary and sterile, as long as the beer that's in it is or coming out of it is sanitary and sterile. Whereas with this version, everything in front of that seal is essentially open to the elements, for want of a better word, once you've poured beer through it. So obviously you can, squirt Star San up into the spout on these taps, and you should be cleaning them regularly anyway, regardless of whether it's forward sealing or not. But you will find, and you notice this when you open taps like this up, if they haven't been cleaned recently, that you do always tend to get some residue and sort of sour beer in the or stale beer that's in the front portion of the tap, and they can get a little bit funky. This one is actually not too bad, so there wasn't any kind of gunk or mold of any significant amount in there. But yeah, it does smell a bit. Whereas this one, obviously, if you're just doing a quick squirt of Star San up into the nozzle here, that's pretty much going to clean everything out, and there's not going to be any nooks and crannies in there for the beer to settle into and get stuck in and cause you kind of sanitation issues and stuff like that. So yeah, the forward sealing element is definitely a bonus in terms of cleaning, ease of cleaning, sanitation, and avoiding off flavors through stale or soured beer that's in the actual tap itself or the tap mechanism. So yeah, that's what they look like kind of taken apart. So I'm going to fit these onto the keys now, and then obviously just show you at the end what they look like and how they are operating on the keezer itself. So yeah, let's get the new version fitted up and see how it works. So there we are, the new taps are on. Really pleased with how they're looking. I think it's visually a little bit smarter looking than the previous versions that I had. Didn't have any issues at all fitting them, so they go together really easily, and really good build quality on the Nukataps from what I can see. So there's only one thing left to do really, which is to pour a beer off of one of these and see how they perform in terms of actually dispensing the product. So let's do that now. So there we have it. The proof is in the pouring, I guess. And this is actually a beer that with the previous taps I was having quite a few fobbing issues with, so it was quite a foamy pour before we got these taps, and that's just poured perfectly. In fact, I had to give it a little bit of encouragement to get a bit of extra head on the top of the beer. So it seemed to be performing really well compared to the cheaper tap option that I had before. And yeah, I might even be able to sort of shorten the lines or up the pressure a little bit to get a faster pour off of those. So that's all good. Very happy with the comparison between the two. As I said earlier, it's not really a totally fair comparison between the two because the cheaper taps had the flow control and all the rest of it on. But as far as like the looks of them and performance pouring out this beer, they seem to have done the job really nicely. So yeah, for that extra bit of money, I think it's definitely a worthwhile investment, and I probably, if I had the opportunity, would have chosen to go down this route earlier on, so that I'd had access to the extra accessories and things like that you can do with these taps and replacement parts and all the rest of it that maybe aren't available for the cheap budget options. So yeah, I hope some of you found that useful, and let me know if you've got any questions in the comments. Cheers.
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, you know, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.